discussion in KSRs, and yeah, I mean, we
Yeah.
should
Hmm.
have a lot of fun, understand this case in a bit more detail, and yeah, get to learn a bit more in this session as well. Cool. I will just a bit about me. I am a PM at the Walt Disney Company. I work on their streaming products, Disney Plus, Hulu. Before that, I've spent few years at Hotstar and Flipkart. So been in streaming space for almost four years now. That's pretty much what I do. So I like watching content, also like delivering content to users. That's a bit about me. Um, awesome. Um, let's before we get started, let's few ground rules. I think I will keep opening up for questions for you whenever you want whenever you folks want to have some questions. I'll keep opening up. But since this is a very large cohort, I also don't want to disturb the flow. So keep using the chat a lot more. Keep asking your questions in chat, whatever feels relevant. I'll cover it whenever I'm going through the session. Um, and yeah, I think the other thing that I wanted to mention is don't, since all of this session is recorded, the slides will be shared. Don't spend too much time taking notes on what is being presented. You have done the session, you've done the case. In your case ours, we had a discussion, we will go through a solution in the meanwhile. So find out things that you missed and take notes of those will be the things that will really help you when we are going session, when you're going to do this again, say for your interview prep or anything else, right? So focus on those things. We will structure it in two parts. So one part is we will spend some time hearing your thoughts on how you folks have gone through this, how you have tried to attempt this question, and yeah, and then I'll show you how I would have done it. Take questions, help you learn on some of the things that you might have missed. Everyone with me so far? All good? You can just say yes in the chat. Okay. I am hoping everyone is. I'm seeing a few yeses. Awesome. Cool. We will. I know you were just discussing this question, so this slide doesn't mean a lot. You are already very well aware. Swiggy wants to reduce customer support queries. The questions we are asked is estimate the number of customer support agents Swiggy needs and the product outcomes that our roadmap will have. So I'm going to start off with hearing your thoughts. Why don't you guys share how you have gone to attempt this question? But yeah, raise your hands. I see Karthik already raised his hand. Raise your hand and I'll prompt you folks to go on and share your thoughts. Cool. Thanks a lot, folks, for raising your hands. Karthik, since you're the first one, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Devansh. So we discussed in a way that we are considering this as a Swiggy food delivery app because Swiggy has a multiple product, right?
Right.
Like food delivery, Instamart. So we took it as a food delivery one, and just to approach this particular problem, we understood, like how many orders does Swiggy have? Like
Hmm.
how many support query do they generally raise from all of the orders that have been successfully placed, and the average tat does it take for a like a particular ticket to be solved,
Hmm.
right? So we took like the monthly active users from there, like how many average order does this wiki have and overall in a month, and
Okay.
from that overall orders, we
Hmm.
approached using like the how many orders do they end up with a support query request. And since even for the support query request they have chat, calls, right? And
Right.
individually, like for chat and call, how much time does it take? And we took out the
Hmm.
weighted average, and from
Okay.
there we got the weighted average, let's say like somewhere around 6 to 7 minutes for one ticket,
Okay.
including all of that chat, calls, and
Hmm.
all. And now
Okay.
we like wanted to understand how many agents does Swiggy have as of now,
Right.
like how many agents and how many tickets are being assigned to these agents on a monthly basis
Okay.
across like all of the orders that have been placed, and what's the average time does it take for one agent to solve for these tickets.
Hmm.
So in a month, in a like in a daily basis, they handle somewhere around 20 to 30 tickets. So from there we were able to
How did you come to 20 to 30 tickets?
like I used LLM over here, to be
Okay.
honest.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
It's not ideal to use LLMs in this case.
Okay,
I
okay.
mean, it would have been fine, say, if you would have put a structure to it and taken our guesses as to what number we want, like how do we arrive to that? Because you were talking about number of orders, number of active users.
Uh-huh.
We would have drilled down from there and would have gotten to a number here. So not ideal to use LLMs.
Got
I
it.
would say avoid. Like once you've created the structure and you want to just say brainstorm, find gaps, that's fine, but not for
Mm-hmm.
this. But still, I would say net it's a good approach. I think you touched upon a few important things. Um, but go ahead. You said there is 20 to 30 queries. How do you go on from there?
So once we get, like these are the queries that have been assigned to these agents. So from the
Mhm.
back, like estimating X number of backlog are there, and against the number of total orders being placed, we would, like the delta would give us the agent that are required. So that's the basic raw structure that I
Okay.
thought about.
And how do you estimate the total number of orders?
Total number of orders again, uh, LLMs, or like the
Okay.
basic
Okay. Got
from
it.
let's say, like X number of active users are there, the average order that is being placed, it's, like y into 30 would be the average monthly orders that they can get on the platform.
Okay. I think fairly in the right direction. I would have like on orders, I would have expected it to go in a bit more detail on how would have estimate, but fair
Okay.
enough. We'll move forward. Siddhan, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you. Since our primary objective is to reduce the customer support query, me in our group, Shovik, Aditi, Aryan, we all came down to how we can actually reduce the number of support tickets, like by
Okay.
increasing the trust factor with the customer, like light tracking, advertising things that we are making the secured package and everything, because half of the things are related to the trust factor which customer has, that the packaging was not good, the food was not good. So
Right. And
increasing,
I'll just pause you
yeah,
there. I know
yeah.
you're talking about reducing support queries, but I don't want to go into solutions right now.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
usually
okay.
that's the last
So
step.
yeah, yeah.
So,
If we come down to the estimate, reviewing all the even Aditi in my team, she read the statement presented by Swiggy by the last year. So we came down to a order value of around 40 lakhs per day,
okay.
including which was your Instamart and your food delivery, because Instamart being only primarily used in tier 1 cities, and now it has been expanding a little bit in your tier 2 cities.
Mhm.
So we guess estimated it around 40 lakhs per day, where we
So 40
also
lakhs, sorry, 40 lakhs per day you got from a report you're sharing, or you guesstimated the 40 lakhs number?
the reports which we read, it wasn't one report which we read,
Okay.
gone through. It was about two or three reports which we went through. So we actually averaged it around 40 lakhs. So some reports were saying that, for example, Zomato. So Shobik in our team here pointed out that on a peak day, 75 lakh orders were ordered by, like, there were 75 lakh orders on Zomato. So
Okay.
considering all that factors, we came down to an average of 40 lakh per day.
Sorry. Huh, okay. But say if you had to take like do a calculation to see if 40 lakh is the right number or not, how would you do that?
We actually have to come down to see how many orders have been placed for per product on the Swiggy, for example, the food side and the Instamart, and you have the medic side as well now.
Right.
So
No, for that you will need internal Swiggy data. But say as
yeah.
an outsider, I tell you there are 40 lakh orders per day, and I want you to take a guess whether this number is in the right ballpark or not. How
Okay,
would
so
you do that?
for that as well, I try to do it for my friends who currently, me being in a tier 1 city, Bangalore. I actually reached out to my friends, seeing how much order do they do
Okay.
through Swiggy per day, which was coming around to be 2 to 3 orders per day. They have been using, counted both Instamart and the food delivery part. And whereas when I come down to tier 2 cities, where basically my belonging is from Lucknow. So when I went down to Lucknow and I saw how much orders are there, it was still revolving around one order a day usually.
Okay.
So we ballparked it, we actually considered that part as well, that okay, how
Okay.
much tier 1 and tier 2 cities are considering it to be.
Okay, so now you had orders. How did you go on from there to orders
Uh,
to actually estimating the
Okay.
number of agents?
Yeah. So we tried to check. I actually reached out to my friends as well who have been using Swiggy, like a survey. I tried to do a survey, and we ballparked the support ticket, like how many times they raise a ticket to for their food delivery or the Instamart delivery or any delivery. So we estimated it to be 2% of their orders or 3% of their orders being raised in the support queries.
Okay.
Usually they are after the point where they have the live tracking enabled. Now the amount of support ticket has gone down, so they don't we don't raise that much of tickets now. So we estimated the support instance to be 2%, which comes down to be 80,000 tickets per day.
Sure.
uh, Practically handling practically now, since even if you see a lot of platforms have uh, presented a bot for the
Right.
first resolution part. So and but it also has a fallback, because a lot of people don't rely on the bot. They try to tend to move to the live agent compared to the bot. So we took a bot handling 30% of the tickets, whereas 70% of the tickets or the chat will be going to the agents.
Okay.
So that those tickets will be around 56,000 tickets.
Hmm.
And so I took a higher number of tickets handled by per person in a day, which is around 84 tickets a day. Yeah, this came down to be from the point where I belong to a support side. So I work in a support side, and we see how pressurized a lot of times we are to handle more tickets than usual. So taking 5 minutes per person to handle a ticket, we and people working. So we have a 9 hours of shift, but people tend to
Okay.
work only 6 to 7 hours a day. So we estimated it to be around 84 tickets a day, which revolves around for us 670 agents will be needed. But then we consider also the buffer where people are on leave, people are sick, and people not
Right.
coming. So we consider it to be a buffer of 15%.
Sorry. I'll pause you. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
I
sure.
got the
Yeah,
gist of how you are approaching it. That's
yeah.
great. I want to give other. I want to hear from more people as
Sure,
well.
sure, sure.
But I got
Yeah,
a sense of how you're doing
sure.
it. Makes
Thank
sense.
you. Yeah.
Hey Arshit, go ahead.
Hi. My approach is a mix of, it's very similar to what Karthik and Siddhant did, but I'll just walk you through the numbers. Uh,
I would be more
yeah,
interested in structure. So if you can
yeah,
leave the
yeah.
numbers aside, I think that's
So
okay. You can walk me how
we
you
referred,
calculated it. That's fine.
got it. So our approach was to calculate orders per day into orders that get raised with a query. So we will take a cut there. And
Okay.
then we take a cut on the percentage of queries that are resolved by bot.
Okay.
So we are left with the queries that will be given for manual intervention.
Okay.
So that is how we estimate the number of queries eventually in a day that are getting raised. Then to understand the number of customer support agents that we would require, we uh, understood that the time required to resolve one query takes a certain time into how many minutes per agent do we have in a day. So we have taken 7 hours that they'll be working effectively. So
Hmm.
total queries, how many total queries are resolved by one person? That comes around 47 for us. And that is how we resolved the number of customer support agents that we would be requiring, which is total queries resolved by a person. So queries requiring manual intervention divided by total queries resolved by one person. So that comes
Got it.
around 783 for us.
Yeah, that's a
Uh,
good way to do it. How
on
would
the
you estimate the number of orders?
we so in our team we collectively assigned data to each person, and we were hunting for this number in
Okay.
annual reports and earnings calls, and
Okay.
so we refer to the data that has been put out by Swiggy. So
Okay.
annual orders, so number of orders per day, we got that to be 2.5 million per day for
Okay.
just the food and delivery business of theirs,
Right. And
excluding Instamart.
say if I were to turn it back and say you don't have access to any reports, but I want to take an educated guess.
Yeah.
Uh, any thoughts? How would you attempt it then?
Then I think, given that we've been told that there are 500 cities, I would
Hmm.
first probably, if I were to approach this guesstimate, I would divide them into a couple of different types of cities. One, tier one cities, and second, probably tier two cities. In tier one cities, number of orders per active user into I can estimate the number of users by taking a few cuts. And
Okay.
similarly for tier two, because the assumptions will be different. And
Hmm.
then I collate them both. Probably that's the way I would go about it.
Got it. Makes sense. Yeah, I think the if you have the number of orders right, I think the rest of the structure was really good. The order estimation could get a lot better. We will discuss how we can get better at it. But yeah, fairly in the right direction. I will. I think I'll be able to take two more folks. So Shravani, why don't you go ahead, and then I have Aryan after that.
Yes, sir.
For others, I'll try to accommodate you when I'm getting more inputs as we go.
Yes, sir. So first of all, our team acknowledged one thing that we have to go with guesstimates. It's not about coming up with right numbers, looking at annual reports, but
Right.
coming up with the correct approach. So we started with assuming that considering 500 cities given in the case study question itself, we started
Hmm.
thinking that there will be 10 lakh orders, a pure guess. Okay.
Okay.
And then build a structured approach over it. So 10% of those queries,
Okay,
10% of
but
it.
why 10 lakh? Like, how did you arrive at 10 lakh number?
Okay, so 500 cities are there. So
Hmm.
considering that more or less how many queries will be coming in one day, 10 lakh queries will be coming to, not queries, orders will be coming to Swiggy.
Yeah. How do you get to a number of 10 lakh and not, say, 20 lakh or 15 lakh or 8 lakh?
Okay, so we just started with 500 cities are there into
Right.
some hundred number of like orders from each city, something like that. So that is how we went ahead with. Okay, so the approach that we moved forward with is very interesting. I think we should go that one. Okay, so what
Okay.
we did was, so we thought that 10 lakh queries are that 10% of them will be solved by human agents. The rest queries that will be solved
Hmm.
by some bots. Okay, so
Okay.
10,000 queries is what human agents are required to solve.
Right.
Now, we also thought about one thing that there will be three shifts. 24 hours a day is there. So 8 hour shift per person. Okay. So we thought about this that 5 minutes is the average industry standards for a customer query to be resolved. So we went with that. Okay. So we thought about this that 8 hours, nobody will be working 8 hours. So 7 hours. So roughly we found out that in one shift, one agent will be solving 60 queries. So we also thought about this. Now we have 10,000 queries. So how many hours will be required? So like 10,000 into 5 divided by 60. Okay.
Hmm.
So 5 minutes is like the average time to solve, and we want to find out how many hours is required to calculate this. Okay, that divided by the number of support agents we have, we want to find out. Okay, so each one will be solving like 60 queries. So we divided this both numbers and came up with a
But how did
solution.
you come to 60 queries?
Okay. So again, I'll just tell you this one. See, for each hour, support customer agent will be solving how many queries? 5 minutes is what a query needs to be resolved for. Okay.
Okay, sure. So there's an average time to solving a query. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what happens is that in one shift, which is of 8 hours, we
Okay.
just ignored the 8. We went for 7. Huh. And then we found out that we might be getting 70 queries something roughly, but there will be vacations and also this age cases have to be considered.
Okay.
So
Got
going
it.
forward 60 queries is what
Got it.
we
Got
found.
it. I broadly got a sense, I think, similar to how others have done it, taking the
Yeah,
average handling times, shift times. I think that makes sense.
yeah.
I'll just have one last person. Aryan, why don't you were asking to showcase how do you estimate numbers? So why don't you go ahead and make it quick? So because I need to move a bit further now.
So I proceeded it as I first divided the cities into tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities.
Right. Yeah.
So there are around 10 tier 1 cities in India. And
Yeah.
there
Sure.
are around
Yeah.
100.
Just walk me through the structure. Numbers. I don't want the numbers right now.
Uh,
Just walk me through the structure.
then I calculated I guess the average number of population in tier 1 cities, tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities.
Okay.
Then I get the total population of tier 1 cities, tier 2 cities, and tier 3 cities.
Right.
Then I divided that by the average family size of each city. I took
Hmm.
it at 5 person per five
Hmm.
members per family. Then I
Right.
then I guessed that usually 3 orders per week are placed in tier 1 cities, and
Right.
1 order per week in tier 2 cities, and point
Mm.
0.5 or 1 order in tier 3 cities. By that, I got around 50 lakh orders in tier 1 cities, 20 lakh in tier 2, and 5 lakh in tier 3. That sum up 75 lakh total orders. This is a total order by Zomato, Swiggy, and else apps. So Swiggy
Got
has
it.
around 40% market share.
Hmm.
So by
Hmm.
that, I got around 20 lakh, 28 lakh orders
Hmm.
placed on Swiggy per day.
Got it. Yeah, that's in a lot of in the right direction. That's how I would estimate it as well. Got it. Awesome. Thanks, folks. You can put your hands down. I will move forward. Um, thanks a lot for your inputs. I think a lot of you have thought in the right direction. I know Dhaval has been talking about in chat how focusing on numbers is not important. That's a really great thought. The structure feels more is always more important. Cool. But before we go a bit more deeper, I just want to highlight a few blind spots that you might have felt. I know it's a fairly easy problem statement and feels like we know most of it, but yeah, I just wanted to highlight few blind spots, and I want you to tell me if you consider them or not. If you consider them, then that's great. That's a sign that you're thinking in the right direction. If you have not, then that's probably a learning for you on how you train yourself in your practice sessions into these, not missing these kind of blind spots. Um, okay, so how many of you thought about different verticals? I know. Okay, so how many of you thought about different verticals? I know a lot of you thought about food delivery and Instamart, but I didn't hear Genie and Dine Out from a lot of you. So, how many of you considered about Genie and Dine Out as well? Okay, seeing a lot of people saying yes. That's great. If you did, if you didn't, again, learning for you to take care about this in future. Um, what's next? Did you folks think about who is calling, or did you all assume that these are only our users are calling? Because our users could call, our restaurants could call, and our delivery partners could call. Very important to consider about all of these. You might have studied about the different actors that are there. So if you considered them, again, great. If you didn't, uh, learning for the next time. How many of you considered about pre-order support and post-order support? I saw most of you were talking about post orders, where uh, once the order is placed, what is happening to the order. But did you consider about pre-order, where users are reaching out before they have placed their order? Um, okay, I'm seeing a lot of people say yes. That's nice. This I think most of you did. Everyone spoke about phone and chat, so I'm gonna skip this one. Did you folks consider about an agent hierarchy? L1 agents, supervisors. You must have seen that you call customer support and you see a lot of times you see yourself transfer your call to the supervisor. I am not okay with the resolution. This is another thing for us to uh, take care into account. So while I saw a lot of people saying yes, I would assume some of you missed this as well. Um, the point is, it was a fairly simple problem statement, right? It's just estimating the number of agents at Swiggy. Still, there is so much scope of making errors, missing out on things. Um, why do we think that happened? Some people would feel maybe they were in a rush or they didn't think that deeply. That's why that happened. But I think my reason, because I've gone through this when I was learning, and I feel it's more about training your mind and always thinking about this in that structured fashion. Like you train yourself, and that's how you end up avoiding these things. It's a typical system one, system two behavior, right? Your brain tries to optimize for spending less energy, do less thinking. So whenever you think it's okay to take assumptions, you will always take assumptions unless you have trained your mind to say, okay, I don't want to take assumptions here. I want to think about it clearly, deeply. And that's how we go forward. That's how our brain works. We always tend to take assumptions because that's always faster, that's energy efficient. it's useful for us in most cases, right? Say if you're walking on the road and you just come across a rope, you jump. You don't assume to think maybe it is a rope, maybe it is a snake. You just jump to avoid the risk, right? But in some cases you need to think deeply. So the question comes: how do we avoid missing these kind of blind spots? And the very simple answer to this is how do we avoid missing them is asking clarifying questions. And I know if you pick up any resource on the internet talking about attempting interviews, etc., they always say asking clarifying questions. But whenever I take interviews, I've also seen the clarifying questions do not come from a interest of trying to learn more or clear out the assumptions, but mostly I see heard clarifying questions that they've crammed from interviews, etc. They don't lead they don't lead the interviewer or the candidate to a meaningful direction. So you could ask me how, like, what would be the right way so that we frame all the clarifying questions. Um, how I typically do this is I'll just write down the problem statement, estimate the number of customer support agents that Swiggy needs to have, and underline everything that feels even a bit ambiguous. Okay, estimate, number, all fairly factual things. Customer, okay, I am making an assumption that customer is something. Support agents, I will make an assumption what support agents really is. Swiggy, I know what Swiggy does, but I don't know for sure, right? There could be more to this. So I've just highlighted three different things that I felt ambiguous in the session in the question, and then I just use these keywords to frame more questions. So what that ends up being, if I just look at customers, now I am questioning, okay, who all can call customer support? For what type of queries? That lends me to that lends me to talking about um that lends me to I was sorry, I was just going through chat. I saw some people saying something. So yeah, who all can call customer support? That tells me about talking about customers, restaurant, fleet. When I talk about what type of queries, that comes to thinking about pre-order queries, post-order queries. Then you say go to customer support agents, and now you're questioning what type of customer support exists today: L1 customers, supervisors, phone, chat, and then I expand to Swiggy. And then I talk about, okay, what verticals are we talking about? Instamart, Genie, Dine Out, food delivery. So you see, what has happened is just by explicitly thinking about whatever is even a little bit ambiguous in the problem statement, I have been able to uncover a lot of the blind spots that I had, right? Now, a lot of folks also say, okay, but that feels very dumb asking in an interview what Swiggy does. I would expect the interviewer expects me to know what Swiggy does, right? So I feel dumb asking this question, and it's a fair thought. Even I would say not I would be worried if I was going to ask a very obvious question that I'm expected to know an answer to. If I'm not expected to know an answer, for sure I will ask. But if I'm expected to know an answer, I'm still asking a clarifying question. I still not shy from asking that question. I will ask that question, maybe give a leading answer. Say, okay, I want to know what Swiggy does. In my understanding, it's Instamart, Genie, Dine Out, and food delivery. Is there anything else do I need to consider? So you are asking a clarifying question. You're also sharing your thoughts. So you're not taking the risk of, say, appearing dumb to the interviewer because you asked a very basic question which you might have known. And yeah, you've also clarified anything, uncovered all the blind spots. Everyone with me so far, I'll just pause for 5 minutes for any questions that are there, and then I'll move forward from there. Yeah, then go ahead.
So you have talked about all the blind spots we had. That is, we had so many verticals, and we have. If they can consider all of these, then the tree would look really big, right?
100%. Right.
So do we go through all of them in an interview, or do we specify only on a few of them?
Right. It's a great question. So, see, if we look at the goal of the interview, what it is, right? Interviewer is looking to not get to the right answer of what is the number of agents. They are looking to understand whether we are able to think about it structurally and we are able to break it down properly, put a right structure to this estimation. Now, if you, as you said, if you were to do all of these, it would become extremely complex. But does that mean we simply avoid and not talk about these things? No. We talk about these things. We say these are different things to consider. To start with, I'll start with this. So you could say, okay, there are these many types of customer, these many types of support, these many types of verticals. Let's just focus on food delivery and Instamart and Genie right now. Let's remove Dine out. Let's talk only about the customer and let's talk only about L1 agents. Let me estimate that first. And once I'm done, I will maybe use that as a base to do other estimations. And that's absolutely fine. So you can talk about the entire universe and then pick a smaller scope of it that you think is the most important, move forward with that, and then move on to the other things. And in most cases, interviewer will let you do that one cycle of doing solving a small part of it, and then they have fairly evaluated you that yes, this person can actually attend the case properly, and they will not even ask you to do the other things. But say if you don't talk about different verticals, you don't talk about different types of customer support, that ends up appearing to the interviewer, okay, this person did not even think about these 10 things. And that's what we're trying to avoid. Does that make sense?
Yes, got it. Thank you.
Uh, yeah, Praneet, go ahead.
Yeah, hi Devash. So basically, my question is, as everyone is saying, right, we don't need to focus on the number. We have to focus on the approach. So see, like if you have to summarize the approach, right, in just one sentence, can you just tell me what it is? What it is like? Because numbers has to come, right? Without the numbers, how can we, solve the
Not
problem?
not necessarily. Approach I'll come to. I'll share you what, as we move forward. I'll go into detailed answer of how would we estimate the number of agents, what would be the tree that we create. So we'll come to that. If that's
So
what you're looking forward to, we do cover that. Yes.
okay. So see, like in a systematic way, I'm trying to think. If we say approach, right, are there any specific points that step one, step two, step three, step four, in this approach we have to go?
Right.
Because the numbers has to come at some point, right? Because without numbers, how can we,
Correct.
the data
Correct.
has to come right at some point. So
So
see, what I'm trying to ask you is, yes, obviously the approach, but the approach cannot be non-systematic, right? It has to be like step one, step two, step three, and
right.
it will also help us to solve the problem more clear. So that is what I'm
Right.
trying.
Right. So the step one is what we are seeing right now here, which is you start with your clarifying questions, clarifying everything.
Hmm.
The next step would be taking some of the assumptions that I was talking about. Let me talk about these things and then I'll go on to the other stuff.
Okay.
And then you actually do the estimation, but you don't get to the number still. You break down the problem statement. Okay, say if I were to ask you how much time does it take you from going from home to your office,
Hmm.
you would not give you would ideally give me an answer. It takes an hour, but the other way to do it is okay. It is 9 kilometers away from my house, so that is my distance. My average speed typically when I'm traveling in office days is 30 kilometers per hour. So now this is the time. So what I did was I talked about distance, I talked about speed. These are the two variables I put. And now once I put down all the variables where I can take a educated guess, I can eventually get to a number. So if you're able to put down that mathematical formula of number of agents, that's good enough. And then putting numbers there is not the tough part, right? Because that's then basic arithmetic. Anyone can do it. You use a calculator, get to an exact number. So, but putting that mathematical formula where you can put educated guesses is important. So, if I were to ask you, what is a probability of an airplane crashing?
Hmm.
You will not be able to give a number, but you will talk about different factors. And then you will keep breaking it down to a number which you can take an educated guess. Okay, in this case, maybe we do not, but you will list down all the 10 different factors. And then you can even ask the interviewer, okay, what are the probabilities of these 10 different things? So that's what I'm getting to. Like numbers you can get to, but that's just more assumptions on numbers and arithmetic. That's not what you're being evaluated on. You're being evaluated on your ability to break down agents into 10 different other things that you can easily estimate.
Breaking it down is the approach.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
I have two more people. I'll quickly move. Dhruv, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Devansh. So, when I read the problem statement, so at one part it was mentioned that we have the team is to now work with the product team and they have the data available. So, I think that was one of the I think parts that I focused on rather than focusing on estimating the number. Also, the position is estimate the number, but I was saying that the part that the data is already told to us that it is given. So I think we can shape the structure in a way that leads to a formula where we can get the number of agents, provided we have the data that is given to us. So can we not work in that approach and
But
not
but in
estimate the
most
numbers?
but in most cases that will not happen. Like even here, the question really is to do the estimation. Like
Hmm.
that's what we are asked to do. Like estimate the number of agents. Of course, you could say I work at Swiggy, I can get the number of support agents data at Swiggy, and 100% you could go ahead with that. But then are we really learning anything? No, right? Say if I were to if you were working in I was working in Flipkart and someone would ask me something like this and I had to take an estimate on number of delivery partners, it would be far more easier for me to take an educated by guess by doing some of this maths rather than going to the team and actually getting the data, because this will just take broadly 5 minutes of my time. Getting the exact data from someone will take slightly longer and I'll of course validate, but this is just an educated guess. So you do this,
Okay.
you move forward. You don't
Okay.
wait for the actual data or to come in, and that needs to be correct at the tens and ones units of the order, right? I get take an educated guess in thousands and lakhs, and that should be good enough for me to at least think about what to do next. And you
Okay.
will
Okay.
see how
Yeah.
estimating number of support agents uncovers so many other themes that also clears out your product roadmap as well. We will find that out as we move forward.
Got it. Thank you.
Hey Swati, go ahead.
Hi. So, a few things are coming to my mind. While I start answering, I like the approach that you underline things and then you clarify. So, right there, when you start off, do you clarify? I'm assuming Swiggy, I'm talking about Swiggy Instamart food delivery only, not Ginny or Dine Out. Is that fair to say when
Uh,
we start off?
No, I would say I would ask the interviewer what Swiggy really means, what he means when he shared the question Swiggy. He and I would share Swiggy as Instamart, Genie, Dine Out, food delivery. Do you want me to consider all? Do you want to consider some of them? He could answer
Okay.
either ways, and I would move forward with that. Or he could say, "Yeah, I wanted to consider all, but why don't you take one and move forward with that?" I would do that. So
Hmm.
it's a dialogue. It's not a everything that you have to decide on yourself and move forward. Right? It's a dialogue with an interviewer.
Okay. Okay. So then, if they say you have to take everything, then you can assign percentages and move on.
You could still break it down, right? You could say, okay, Instamart, Genie, food delivery, similar. There is an order that customer places on the app. Let me do it in one go, and then dine out I'll do separately because the user journey is completely different. So that
Got
could
it.
be
Yeah,
a
this
way to
makes
do it.
sense. And maybe when they say there are 500 cities that are facing this issue, could we also ask them ki, is there a probability that this might be happening in a few of the cities, or maybe a city, because maybe they have some fleet issues, delivery partner issues, logistical issues that might be
Right.
cropping up?
Right. That doesn't help us go anywhere because that's a critical thing that a lot of candidates do. What it's effectively doing is in your mind you had an answer and now you are making it sound like a clarifying question and then asking to the interviewer to give you a prompt whether this is the right answer or not, right? And most interviewers will clearly deny that, oh, that we don't know, this is not happening because of that, because what is happening is you're
Right.
listing out an exact reason why something like this might be happening and then framing it as a clarifying question. uh,
No, I could just ask them if this could be happening in a city, and I can get an answer right there. Then I can proceed maybe.
in a city, sure, but say if they say that it's happening in 50% of the cities, you'll still have to do the entire exercise, right? Doesn't help
Hmm.
you move forward in any way.
Okay. So I mean, what I'm trying to say is, whatever comes to my mind, whatever edge cases come to my mind, is it okay if I ask them, or does it show a lack of maybe not going further enough? Like, how does it show on me?
Right. I would reserve the even some of the edge cases that are coming to our mind, right? I would reserve because as I said, interviewer is not looking for an answer.
Hmm.
Say if I were to say the customer support queries you want to reduce, and I say, oh, is there a data error? What do you think they'll say? No, there's no data error. If I say, oh, are your delivery getting delayed, and that's why our customer support queries are increasing, most likely he'll say, no, delivery our delivery rates are fine, because he doesn't want to give, they don't want to give me an answer upfront, right? Like, what will we do in the next 40 minutes of interview if I just say, oh, delivery rates are the reason why this is happening? Doesn't take a
No, they
second.
might. My question rather was like, if I show, like, if I ask these questions, how does it look on me? Does it show a more variety of thinking that I'm trying to do, a breadth of thinking, or does it show like I'm not approaching quickly?
No, it shows that we are not approaching structured, if you would ask me,
Yeah.
because we are coming to
Okay.
we are jumping. We are not flowing we're not taking the usual flow. Sorry, I'll
Hmm.
move forward. I'll take more questions at the
Yeah.
end, Swati. I'll move forward now. Awesome. So this is what we call our scope sort of questions. Like you are clarifying the scope here. Then of course there should be a goal related question. Why do we care about number of agents at all? And I, in fact, expected a lot of you to ask me. We have been asked to reduce number customer support queries. Why are we suddenly caring about number of agents at all? Why are we? And I saw someone also talk about it in the chat. Why do we even care about number of agents? Why are we not just directly focusing on reducing customer support queries? Those slides are hidden. I'll come to those in the end when I'm done with this case. But that's a very valid question to ask. Why agents is even important? I could just simply reduce queries, right? And you would find out that we want to reduce number of agents because support queries eventually turns out to reducing cost. So if you reduce number of agents, that also turns out to reducing number of costs. Agents is the number one cost, so that's why number of agents is important. I'll cover this in a bit more detail. And the other set of questions that you should ask is, are there any constraints that are there with respect to this? So, are there any bandwidth timeline constraints that are there that we have to take into account while reducing the customer support queries? Or are there any legal or compliance constraints? So, if you were to ask me as an interviewer, I tell you, yeah, there are constraints like you can't make people work more than 8 hours a day. You could, the very simple way to reduce cost would be ask people to work 12-hour shifts. Boom, suddenly a problem is solved. But we are not doing that, right? We can't play with labor laws and do something like this. So that's a legal or compliance risk. Typically, there are four types of constraints. There is bandwidth constraint, that you only have these many engineering resources available to you. So that's one kind of constraint. The other kind of constraint is timeline constraints. Okay, we need to solve this in 1 month, or we are okay to solve this in 6 months. The way you approach it will completely change if I were to solve it in 1 month versus 6 months, right? In 6 months, I'll take a more systematic, long term approach. In 1 month, I'll look for more band aids to put so that I can solve this problem. So there's bandwidth, there's timeline, there is legal, there is compliance. The other kind of constraint that is there is a cost constraint, which is does not show up here because we are actually reducing cost. So cost is not really a constraint here. But these are the clarifying questions that I would ask. And then let's go to the guesstimate. Let's go to the working of how I would estimate the number of agents. Again, as I was saying, I have taken a few assumptions as we move forward. So I'm saying we are only considering phone and chat agents. We are excluding dine out support for now. We're talking about only user constraints, user complaints, and L1 agents only. Once we have done this for this, it would be very easy to extend that same calculation for the other parts as well. Because you will take, so say if you estimate the number of agents, L1 agents, you could simply say, okay, over 10 agents, there would be one supervisor. So my L2 agents number is this technically, right? So the rest of the problem becomes easier if we have done this one pass. So let's go to that. Now, one very big thing that I wanted to convey is I saw a lot of you starting in the reverse order. So a lot of you started your estimation with number of orders and then coming to number of queries. So you started from a reverse direction. You started at the edge of the estimate to reach to the starting point. It's always better to start from number of agents. Let's break down number of agents first, and then we will keep fanning it out further as we move forward. So instead of saying I will estimate orders and then orders say orders with issues and then queries, start with agents. What's the very simple way to break down number of agents? It is number of queries into number of queries per agent. It's fairly simple calculation, right? I have 10,000 queries. I have these many agents. Divide them, I get number of agents. Now, of course, I want to estimate number of queries. What I would do, I would say to break it down into number of queries as sum of pre-order queries and post-order queries. Right? Are you with me so far? I assume yes. If not, please.
Yes, sir. Devansh, just a second. As you said that first we need to assume take the number of agents. Are you telling to assume it or?
No, I am just breaking it down. I will break it down further till we reach a point that we can put values and then actually come back to this.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So you break it down into pre-order and post-order queries. Now again, since we only have 1 hour, let's limit to post-order queries only. So I'll show you only the working for post-order. You can do it for pre-order as well. I will maybe briefly talk about. But say if you were to limit to only post-order, I would say number of queries is number of orders into percentage of orders with issues, which a lot of you got right. How do you estimate? You talked about number of orders and percentage of orders with issues. That's good. If you were to estimate pre-order queries, I would say, how do you reach Swiggy customer support pre-order? I would talk about, say, number of users that are landing on the help center without an active order into the percentage of them who will actually create a support ticket. Maybe I could use that path to estimate the number of pre-order queries. There could be another way as well. Post-order, this is typically how you would do it. Number of orders into percentage of orders with issues. Similarly, how do you break down number of queries per agent? This again, a lot of you got right in principle. I would have expected a more clear mathematical definition from each of you. But this is, a lot of you were talking about the same principle. It's better if it is put in a mathematical formula that can be written down with equations. You say number of queries per agent is clearly dependent on the number of hours they work, their average utilization rate, and their average query handling time. So if they work 8 hours and their utilization is 80%, that 20% of the time they are sitting free, and then they actually take these many minutes to handle a particular query, that comes down to your number of queries an agent can handle. Now, I was stressing a lot on how do you calculate number of orders. There are 2 ways to do it. One way is, which a lot of you spoke about, you take a top-down approach. You start with population. Okay, this is the total population of India, or this is the total population of cities where Swiggy operates. This percentage of users have internet access. Only of this percentage of users do online ordering. Not all users will do online ordering. So you get a base of people who order online. Then you multiply it by market share, because some will go to Zomato, some will go to Swiggy, some will go to somewhere else. And then you do average order per customer. And then now you have a number of orders clearly in front of you. Of course, getting to these numbers will be some guesses if you were to actually estimate a number, but we can take very educated guesses here. This is called a top-down approach because you're starting from the top. You're drilling from population to a Swiggy number of orders. There is one other way to do it, which is called a bottom-up approach, which will typically be used by people who are at Swiggy. If I worked at Swiggy, I would know, okay, 10 million users typically come to the platform on a day. Our conversion is around 2-3%. So that's how my number of orders would look like. This is called a bottom-up approach. Most good candidates in an interview will talk about both of these approaches. A lot of them, like every candidate, will mostly talk about this. This is the simpler one to talk about. But the difference occurs when you talk about a bottom-up approach as well in an interview. And there are specifically some kind of questions where bottom-up approach is the only approach that works. So say if I were to ask you, how many passengers are there on a Bangalore airport? Some of you, if you were to start with population, say Bangalore population, and then inward coming users, and then how many people have enough money to actually travel airline, and then how many people are actually traveling, you can see that it becomes fairly complicated as we keep drilling it down, right? But if I were to tell you that there are only two airstrips at Bangalore airport, now suddenly you know, okay, two airstrips only. Only five planes can, only one plane can take off in 5 minutes. Suddenly you have number of flights with some level of utilization, right? At peak hours, they will be 100% occupied. At dull hours, they will be 80% occupied. So you have number of flights. You also have an average capacity of flight. You also can take an educated guess on how much flights are filled. Um, so once you do that, it becomes a slightly easier estimate. This is a bottom up estimate. Aryan, I'm seeing your question. I'm hoping this airline example explains it pretty well, right?
Devansh, sorry to interrupt. Just a small query. In the number of order that you are placing, we have exactly in our group, we have taken up that approach from the population.
Right.
Dined out to the market share of Swiggy, we will get a number. What we have done is instead of going the average order per user, we have used this bottom up approach, number of visit into conversion rate. So we combine the top down and the bottom up. Is it okay or it's going to be redundancy?
Okay, so you're saying you came here, used this
Yes.
to estimate number of visits, and then put a conversion
From
rate.
the market share rate, what we have done is like daily visit, and that from the daily visit we got a order conversion rate. So it's a daily order.
Um, Seems a bit of overkill to me, because if you have done all of this, then I think you can simply take average order per customer. You don't need to estimate number of visits from here.
Okay.
It's like you don't have to go that path. If you've already done this entire thing, you can just multiply the average order per customer, which you know, which is more easier to guess. So you won't be
Yeah.
able to guess how many times a user goes to Swiggy, but you would know how many times they would place an order, two times a week in tier one city,
Okay.
in tier two city. So that's an easier guess, right?
Yes, got that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Cool. And as we said, you could also further break down other metrics. So you could say percentage of orders with issues, and you could break it down into payment issue, order status issues, issues with delivery, and maybe few other more. Um, so that's how you break it down. But let's come to our second question now, which was about what would be your product roadmap themes, right? We all know that we wanted to reduce customer support queries. Now, the primary reason, okay, I think that's a good time to bring this up. Give me 1 second. Is the screen size still manageable? Are you able to read what's on my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So this is what I was talking about. Why talk about agents at all instead of queries, right? Queries are just a symptom of a problem. Our business is saying, okay, our queries are too high. We want to reduce queries. Why do we really want to reduce queries? As a PM, we need to see that reducing queries, whenever say we want to reduce queries, it actually means I want to reduce support cost. That is my primary goal. And I want to keep the customer experience at par. It should not degrade. If it improves, that's great. But it should not go down drastically. And if keeping the customer experience fine, I am able to reduce support cost, no one really cares about number of queries, right? Even business would not care about number. Even your Swiggy CEO would not care about number of queries. They care about this, the cost that they're incurring in support. And support cost is primarily driven by agent salaries and agent capacity. So support cost is your number of agents and cost per agent. So we know that's why number of agents is the real problem to solve. If you are able to reduce number of agents, that is a good enough case, right? Now we go back here again, where we have done this breakdown, right? How do we reduce our number of agents? Can we reduce our number of orders? No. We want to keep it increasing. We can reduce our percentage of orders with issues. There are multiple solutions. We will not go through solutions, but this is a potential thing. If we reduce this, our number of queries goes down, our number of agents goes down, right? So this is a very important metric to focus on. What else? Can we increase number of work hours? No. Can we increase utilization rate? Potentially, yes. But with a company like Swiggy, I don't see there would be much scope. I would assume this number would be at 100%. If it is not, this is also a good outcome to focus on. Average query handling time, we can 100% reduce. A lot of you spoke about bot. That is one way to reduce our average query handling time. You introduce a lot more bots. You make bot more self-sufficient so that your average query handling time reduces, right? So that brings us to these two themes, which is your percentage of orders with issues and average query handling time. If you focus on these two metrics, that becomes your product roadmap as well, where you want to reduce average handling time, you want to reduce percentage of orders with issues. Now, it's very important thing to focus on. The reducing average handling time as a PM in the customer support team, you can do yourself. Like you will have a lot more ways to reduce the average handling time. Reducing percentage of orders with issues would have a dependency on other team. Say if you want to reduce payment related issues, what would you do? You would go back to the payments team. Tell them your success rates for credit cards are very low. If you can increase them, my queries were reduced by 2% because 2% of queries are about credit card payment failures. They may say yes, but they don't want to. They are focusing on other things. They may say, come back later. We are focusing on other things. As a PM, you will influence them, tell them why it is important for you. Go with this kind of a graph to them, right? Tell how reducing this reduces my number of agents and how much does it, of an impact it creates in support costs, and they might agree. The larger point being, this will have dependency on other teams. As a PM, whenever you are creating a product roadmap, you will always have a healthy mix of both things that you can do yourself, but then there will also be things that will be dependent on other teams, which is where PM function becomes a bit more difficult because you now are convincing stakeholders and your incentives are not tight. They are just focusing on increasing number of orders, etc. So you will have to influence them with a lot of other ways, make it make sense for them, build relationships, right? Um, so yeah, that concludes our case. I will just showcase one more slide quickly. I had kept it as a slide if I had more time. I see I have 2 minutes before we break for questions. We never in this breakdown we did not talk about phone agents versus chat agents at all. You could bake in it in here in average query handling time, where you could do say percentage of phone queries into a phone average handling time plus percentage of chat queries into a chat average handling time. So eventually say when you talk about reducing average query handling time, you would say okay, chat average handling time is much lower, so if I increase my percentage of chat queries, that's a good way to reduce average handling time, right? Or of course, you can find other ways to reduce phone average handling time. That's of course going into a bit more solution. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I think we can. Yeah, I see a few hands raised. Why don't you folks go ahead and ask your questions? Or did we stop
Yeah,
sharing?
hi Devansh.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead. Praneeth.
So Devansh, when you showed that KPI tree, right? So the thing is how to know that when to stop, right? Because there were like many sections, right, in the KPI tree. So obviously there might be some part that after that box also there can be many boxes, right? So how to know where to stop? And also the second question is, as you made that KPI tree, right? Obviously, if you give me any problem statement right now, I will not be able to quickly think, how to quickly build that KPI tree, right? So that is where I asked you earlier how to approach it, right? Because you never talked about numbers over here,
Right.
and I get it now. Like the approach is first. So as you made this KPI tree, how did you approach it and made it so
Right.
efficient?
Right. So I'll answer your first question first. When to stop? In guesstimates, the right place to stop is where you can take an educated guess, right? We took the airlines example, right? Number of strips, etc. What can I take an educated guess about? What is the average seating capacity in a flight? I will say there are 80% domestic flights, 20% international flights, fairly. Uh, uh, that's a good estimate. And then I know there are 30 seats, 30 rows, six in each. I can take an estimate, educated guess. Point being, in a guesstimate, you stop where you think you can put educated guesses in each of the cells, and then you would be able to get to an exact number. Mostly, no one will ask you to get to an exact number. In some cases, it may so happen that there is no way you can take an educated guess, but breaking it down further, also, you see, even if I break it down further, it will not yield anything. In those cases, you stop there. You typically would ask interviewer to either give you a number that you can go ahead with, or take a random assumption that you feel is right.
This can only come by experience only, right?
Yes, that was going to be my answer for the second question. That you will have to practice a lot more KPI trees. So when I started, almost 8 years back, and I was preparing for my interviews, I used to literally do this, like do two cases every day for almost a month. That's how you get better. You train your mind to think about in different directions. Now, suddenly, if I would ask you how would you estimate the total watch time on Netflix, none of the things that we learned will make sense, right? You will have to go back to asking clarifying questions. Okay, what does watch time mean? Does it mean when users are browsing on the app, or they are actually watching something? And then you will talk about, oh, not all people actually end up watching something. If 100 people come, only a percentage of them will watch. And
See,
then,
when you ask this question, right? When you ask this question, right, the first thing that came into your mind is the total number of users. But what you said was, the different about different average time, right? If anyone is browsing or anyone is actually seeing the movie or the series.
right. Yes. So the way to avoid that is think about mathematically. Start from that total watch time on Netflix. And it is fair to say, you could say total Netflix users into average watch time per user. You could start there. And then you could go on from there. So it's fine. As long as you start from the starting metric and keep breaking it down mathematically, you would be fine. You would be able to break it down. Of course, you will be struggling in some cases, and that's where practice will help you. You will see there's also limited kind of products that are out there, right? There are consumption products, there are products where you order something, it's fairly limited. So once you do 10, 12 of them, a lot of these things will start appearing similar. I will move on to the next person if you
Sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Vishal, go ahead.
Hi, so you're talking about average handling time of queries. So I'm just a bit confused as an PM how this is my responsibility to do it. Because I was thinking that customer support lead or I mean the senior person on that team would be able to decide that this should be the script to handle the customer or this is how you should approach on the chat. So yeah.
Right. So as a PM, we can definitely do. I'll just give you a glimpse on one or two things that could be done, and that should be good enough to open your thinking. As a PM, I can think about, okay, on an average, an agent takes 8 minutes to resolve a query. Where does most of their time go? And they could say their time goes in actually looking for the correct resolution. So they look at the customer complaint, and then they follow a tree. Okay, customer is saying this and then saying this. So they follow a decision tree on their app that leads them to, okay, if customer has said these four things, then this is the resolution that we need to give to the customer. That could be the current process. Now, as a PM, I could create a product. As soon as the customer is saying something on the phone, I could transcribe it, feed it to an LLM, and build all of my intelligence of my policies inside the LLM, which directly gives the resolution to the support agent. So typically, while the support agent was listening, the LLM also listened, found out what the answer could be, and then the customer support initiated it. They didn't need to do that on your own. So maybe you reduce 3 minutes of the time that an agent takes, and that's a big enough win. And there could be more. So as a PM, we can do a lot more in their journeys as well, on how they resolve customer support queries.
You were saying that we can include like a voice thing or in a chat like a bot.
That's just an example. My larger point was there is a journey that customer support agent does on the customer support portal, which we own. There would be scope of optimizing that.
Okay, so other teams won't have any objection to this one, right?
As long as you are anyways the custodian of customer support, if you are the PM, and as long as the customer experience does not go down, no one really cares about it. As long as your costs do not go up, no one really cares about it, because you are doing what you're expected to do, right? Of course, there could be a privacy concern, and legal team could say you can't record customer calls, and then you'll have to speak to legal and figure out how you would really do it in a real world while keeping all the legal constraints in mind. But that's what you need to do. Otherwise, no one would have a problem with this.
Okay, okay, understood, Devang. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, Ashley, go ahead.
So in this guesstimate, didn't incorporate the type of customer support request, right? So if there were like 5 areas that could be related to query, FAQs related to query, I think user behavior or like all of these assumptions would change by the type of customer support. So let's say if I have a
Sorry, Ashley,
agent
I'll hold you there.
which
Your
could
voice.
carry for like 4 to 7 days, it's transferred little later versus my voice is breaking.
Sorry, your voice is
Hello,
breaking for me completely. I'm
hello.
not able to hear you properly.
Okay, can you hear me better? Or I'll no.
Can you switch off your camera, Anshneet?
Yeah.
That requires like
Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of bandwidth. Yeah.
Is this
Yeah,
better?
that's better. Yes, go ahead. You would have to repeat
Okay,
your
perfect.
question though. Yeah, this is better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was just asking if we didn't take the type of customer support request into this case, right? Because if the type of customer request is, say, a payment issue, user behavior or all of these assumptions would change drastically according to me. So let's say the handling time would also go to 4 to 7 days versus, say, a general FAQ sort of request. Um,
Correct.
because we didn't take that cut, like how should we incorporate that in this guesstimate? And is it a good idea to incorporate like this cut essentially?
Right. It would, as you're right, it would become a lot more complicated as you say talk about different types of queries. But the real thing to focus on here is even if it takes 7 days to resolve, I am not blocking the bandwidth of my agent for 4 to 7 days, right? They are actually talking to the customer for 3 to 4 minutes of
Yeah.
time, and then your agent is relieved, and then there is some other team who is looking at it, resolving it, and then there is an outbound call that goes which talks to the customer about the resolution. So your agent is still blocked for that
Yeah,
amount of
yeah.
time which is there, so it doesn't really change much is what I'm getting to.
Agreed, but say even if it's not the entirety of the 7 days, but the customer will reach out multiple times, and that will of course
Correct.
change the average handling time from say 2 minutes to 7 minutes per se.
Right.
So, like, should we take that cut eventually?
You see, of course, it's hard to disagree with what you're saying. It will of course make the estimate a lot more sound, but are we really, the question to be asking here is, are we really concerned if our estimate is off by say 5%? If I were to say we need 1 lakh agents versus 1 lakh 500 agents, does it really change things for us? It doesn't, right?
Makes sense.
So the ROI of going into these much details is not as much, right? Of course, if you do that, you will have a much more accurate answer. But the
Yeah.
ROI is just 4 to 5% of delta. So I would avoid doing that. Does that make sense?
It does. So basically, we are operating with an assumption that across these issues, the assumptions will not vary a lot.
Right.
If
Yeah.
they do, then probably we should deep into like
Yeah, of
deep
course, if
dive
there is a
into.
query that takes 10x more time than everyone else,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I would take that into account. Yes,
Got
you're
it.
right.
Got it. Thanks. That helps me.
Yeah, Prem, go ahead.
Yeah, Divyansh, so I want to know, like, I don't understand the part where you explained, like, you started with the number of agents, but the
Right.
question was to reduce the number of queries. So, how
Right.
you connected these two things? Because initially I thought that I should start with the number of queries.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it
I
is
thought
still
so.
like in many cases, it's confusing to know where to start. It's
Right.
like even the we should start with the bottom down approach or the bottom up approach. So, can you help me with that?
Right. I'll take two questions separately. So talking about how I got to estimating number of agents versus say estimating reducing the number of support queries. Fortunately, in this question, you already had a hint where the question said estimate the number of agents. So it was slightly easier, right? But I'll take that complication aside, say we did not have any such kind of hint, we were just asked to do this. As even when you're working as a PM and every time, there will be a problem that shows up that, okay, do this, reduce number of support queries, increase this metric. it is for us to pause and think if this is the most important thing to solve versus let's try and understand what it is trying to achieve. People are asking us to reduce customer support queries, but what does it really mean for them? Why are they really concerned about customer support queries? And if you think for a minute, you would know, okay, yeah, no one really cares about customer support queries, how many queries are coming, 10 lakh or 20 lakh. They care about how many agents we have to staff. So, what is the cost of those agents? And our customer experience. Okay, a customer has to experience a 5 minute of wait time or a 10 minute of wait time. These are the two things that even anyone in the company would care about until the CEO, right? They would care about, okay, I'm spending X money on customer support agents. This needs to reduce. My customers have to wait 5 minutes before their query gets listened to. This cannot increase and has to get better with time. This cannot go worse than this, right? These are the things that people are concerned about. So as long as you're able to reduce support costs while keeping the customer experience same, you are good, right? So reducing queries is a symptom of the problem. It's not the real problem. The real problem is the support cost. Now, support cost comes from agent salaries. So if you're able to reduce agents or reduce agent salaries, you can't reduce agent salary because again there is minimum wages, etc. So if you can reduce the cost of agents, which translates to reducing number of agents, you would be good enough with me so far,
Yes.
right? And that's where we started our estimated number of agents. Let's find out how we can reduce the number of agents, and that's the starting point. And when we went into the guesstimate, found out factors that we could play with to reduce the number of agents, and that's how we got to our answer.
Yeah, but still, like in this, it is important that the thing we are trying to reduce the number of queries. It when we break this number of agents, it came later. Number of queries. So if we are solving a problem, so the main motto was to reduce the number of queries, but we identify it can be reduced through the number of agents. So we started with the number of agents and then we reached to the number of queries, and number of queries then further broke into other parts. So
Yeah,
it is
yeah,
important that factor come later.
yes.
Yeah.
Because the problem is not queries, it's just a symptom, it's just what people are talking about. The problem is cost, so we will attack the real problem. Why should we even focus on, okay, we could reduce number of queries and that would also reduce the number of agents, that's right, but let's find out if there is any other way to solve this problem, right? We need to keep all our tracks covered. That's our job as a PM. We will not just I'm not sure if you folks have come across this, but there is always this talk about PMs who just take requirements from business, translate them into product requirements, and go to the engineering team, versus the PMs that really do well is look at what business is trying to solve, go to the core of the problem, and then find out few things, and then go on to the tech teams. The second ones create a lot more difference because what if your business team's analysis itself is wrong? What if customer support queries cannot be even reduced? They're just talking about reducing support queries, but we are already operating with very good optimization, and the ROI will not even come at all. But reducing average handling time will actually create a lot of impact, right? So that's our job. No one else will think about this in detail. We need to think about this. Okay, what's the real problem at hand? How do we solve it properly?
Yeah, got it. And the second question is like how to know what approach to follow, bottom up, bottom down, and also like we
Right.
solve the guesstimate using the KPI tree. So this is how we used to, we should solve a guesstimate, because I thought that guesstimate is a different part where we find the number and then the KPI tree we will build later.
Right. No, guesstimate has to be done in this broken down manner always. That's the only right way to do it, because otherwise you will get stuck in numbers and then people will ask you why did you come at that number, and you will keep on explaining that and you will not be able to showcase how you think about the problem. So no, don't focus on numbers, focus on breaking it down. Bottom up versus top down. Um,
Hmm.
Typically, in most cases, if you are insider to the industry, bottom up will make
कर
more
दिया.
sense to you. Top down wouldn't. But then there are some of these cases, right? The airline example that I took, and some of these scenarios. How many people dine out at a McDonald's in Indiranagar, for example? All of these questions. If there is a very clear constraint to the estimation, right? Like whatever I calculation I do, The number of agents, number of users who can dine at McDonald's Indranagar cannot exceed the total capacity into an average time the person takes to eat into open hours. That is the maximum, right? So whenever there is a clear constraint that is available, go for a bottom up approach that will yield more better results than a top down one. Similarly, in the airlines case, there is a clear constraint. There is only a limited number of flights that can take off from the Bangalore airport. It cannot go beyond that, right? So use that principle to decide top down, bottom up. Top down, you should always do. Bottom up, in some of these cases, will help you out. Cool. I'll move on to the next person. Yeah, Karthik, go ahead.
Yes, Raj. So my question is on the approach. So we have taken from the total number of population to the top down to the market share. People here were talking about the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and still we can divide it into urban orders, into rural orders. There are a lot of ways. But the reason why I choose that population from the market share to the order is it looks simple, not confusing, and not complicated to me.
Right.
But on the other side, in the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, are a wider thinking perspective. So, what to do in case if someone is interviewing, whether he think why can't he thinks in a wider perspective, goes for the simpler approach. If I just from the population, if I could give the percentage, I will arrive at the number anyway. I'm not talking about the numbers, but the approach. So, what to take and which one is right?
Right. So both are correct. It's just where we are forking at tiers, honestly. Because in some cases, people forked off tiers early on. If you follow this approach of population market share, you will have to fork it off at average order per customer, and then you will say, okay, tier one, 2 orders per week, metro cities, 3 orders per week. Like you will have to fork it down to say get to an average order per customer. So eventually the forking out will happen somewhere. You will do it early on, you will do it later on. I would prefer doing it later on in the case, because it just reduces the complexity, like doing that population market share etc at an overall, because then I'm doing the same calculation multiple times, tier 1 population, tier 1 market share.
Exactly.
Right, so it's better to fork it down later, an average order per customer, than um the first one. But again, it's a bit subjective. If I was an interviewer and if the user did any of these, I would not say cut marks for doing this versus that. It's just I
So
prefer
it's
one.
purely subjective, but there is nothing wrong in going taking a simpler and simpler approach. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah, Karthik, go ahead.
Hi Devansh, I'm audible.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know, like this approach and KPI which you told, it's like I've got the clarity. But my query was like, this is a very, according to me, this is a generic approach. But if we talk about the peak times during holidays and festive season,
Right.
so the number of orders increasing, hence the number of queries also increasing. But the employees of the Swiggy or the executives which are there to solve the queries, excluding the AI chatbots, they remain the same. That is what I am supposing.
Yeah.
So in that condition, how should I, approach this issue, approach this problem?
Great question. So one assumption that I will take away that you spoke about is in peak times, we will be operating with similar kind of support. That's a no, because companies will proactively plan for peak support, not just customer support, right? Delivery support also I will plan more. I know there is New Year's coming. My orders will increase 10x. So I will preemptively increase my supply chain. I'll hire more contractors for those 2 3 days, pay out slightly more higher salaries to increase my supply of delivery partners or customer support agents as well. So that's one that in peak hours, none of all of this calculations will go for a toss, and we will be operating for with a completely different model. What I need you to take away is, as PMs, we are expected to solve 80% of the problems where there is predictability, right? Because those are the problems that can be solved with tech. There will be a 10-20% share where tech cannot solve the problem. It has to be an operations intervention, a supervisor yelling on the floor, asking people to take calls more aggressively, pushing people a lot more. You will see this number of work hours calculation also going for a toss. They will work more than 8 hours those days. with incentives, right? So I as a PM would not bother about these 20% of the scenarios. If I am able to say reduce support cost for this 80% of the days, it's still a big win for the company. And of course, once we have solved that, we will take some of these learnings to those 20% of the scenarios and then try to optimize those. But this, of course, this estimation with this, whatever talk I have given will completely change if I'm talking about other sides of product, right? So, for example, a Swiggy search engine cannot say, okay, I will not handle for scale because it's primarily a tech product. Or a Hotstar video team cannot say, no, I will not solve for scale because it is primarily a tech product. But the customer support agent, there is a fair involvement of operations as well. So I will focus on solving the more predictable scenarios first and then maybe optimizing some of the peak scenarios. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that insight.
Awesome. Yeah, Aryan, go ahead.
What did you don't like in my approach that I explained earlier? Can you please give some insights?
Boss, I know I heard some of your approaches, but I don't really recall what you specifically talked about. You would have to. It may so have happened that your approach was very similar to me, and I would have said something that there is a miss in this. Take if your approach is very similar to what I've done, take that as a good thing and disregard my previous statement. If that was the case, because I don't really remember what was the answer that you actually gave. I know we spoke and you shared your approach, but I don't fully remember honestly.
Okay.
But did you feel that your approach was very similar to what I did, but I still said that there is something missing?
Not very similar. I firstly divided into tier one, tier two, tier cities,
Okay.
then family size, then go the
Yeah, so
the
that's
number of
correct only.
orders.
It's yeah, it seems fine. Yes.
And do we always have to make the KPI tree to solve these type of questions?
KPI tree is what you will be evaluated on. Every other number is okay. No one remembers what number. Um,
थोड़ा plan है यार
you will say 1 lakh orders and
पैसे
then I'll
कमाते
question
हैं
why
हार्डवर्क
1 lakh.
टीचर है
And then you'll tell me, oh, these are the reasons. And then eventually you'll end up creating a
लड्डू
KPI tree to
लड्डू
explain the 1 lakh number. So start with the KPI tree and then go on from there. It's always
I
a
did,
better approach. That's how
I
you would
did it
always
by
do it.
making I did it by making step by step rather than making KPI trees.
It's technically the same, no?
Yeah.
If you are just breaking down each metric step by step at different steps or creating a tree. Like tree is just a visual representation. What you're effectively doing is taking a metric, breaking down into two, and then breaking each metric into two, three more, right?
Easy to analyze, like.
Yeah, yeah. I could do it like a tree because I was putting out a presentation. If I were to do it on pen and paper, I would do in different steps, as you're saying. Yes, you're right.
Okay. In the interview question, we can do by both approaches. Like we have to explain just the steps.
Yeah, yeah. But put it out visually for the interviewer also.
Okay. So KPI tree is still better than writing steps. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Pallavi, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So my question is very similar to the last question. So in the interview, we have to draw this KPI tree on the pen and paper, or we have to tell it manually, or I mean, we have to tell it verbally, or we have to show on any kind of sheet. I mean, virtual sheet or something like that.
Right. So, simple answer, none of it matters. You could do it either ways. But if I were optimizing for being successful, I would always want to show the visual representation to the interviewer. Why? Because there is always a loss in translation, right? What I write versus what I say, and then what the interviewer listens. There will always be a loss at each step. But if I
ठीक है
am
यश हो रहा है
putting
यहाँ
it down visually for the interviewer,
हैं
they will see what I write. There is no loss in transmission. There is no confusion. Everything is pretty clear. So there is a very clear merit in me showing this to the interviewer visually. Now, how do we show this to an interviewer visually? When there were offline interviews, we used to do this on pen and paper or on a whiteboard. Interviewer could see. Now, in this current setup, these are mostly online interviews. It is always better to open a Google Doc, show always you're working on a Google Doc so that the interviewer A knows what you are doing, like what you are trying to say. Secondly, there's a lot of time in interviews you will take a gap of 2-3 minutes to think, right? And if you're doing it on
Yes.
pen and paper, which the interviewer cannot see, they don't even know which direction you're approaching on. But if you're doing it on whiteboard that the interviewer can see, they can also pause you. Okay, I don't want you to go in this direction. Do this, please. So it is there is very clear merit in showcasing what you are doing directly on a whiteboard rather than just voicing it out to the interviewer.
Yeah, yeah, sure. And again, a very basic question, like in all the sentences you are using PM, but we have enrolled here for a business analyst.
Right.
So is it different? Something different between this?
No, no, not really. Sorry, I'm sorry for the oversight there. I come from a PM background, that's why I keep using
Okay,
the word PM. But
okay.
not really. The approach doesn't matter because if you see between a business analyst versus a PM, the only delta is business analyst is looking at data, identifying the problems, identifying the user scenarios, and then passing it on to a PM who will actually go also talk to user research designers, etc. So whatever we were discussing today is same to both PMs and business analysts. Of course, there are parts of doing user research or talking to design which are more specific to PM, but today whatever we spoke about is broadly same for both the domains.
All right, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, Vishal, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So I was thinking about one more solution. Tell me if this is in my KRA or is this the correct way to approach the problem. So when we were talking about the different kind of queries, so there could be order related query, non-order related query, or payment related query. So is it okay or a good thing to categorize even agents to be specialized only in one kind of field? Like for orders, there will be one kind of agents, and for the non-order related, different kind of orders will directly handle from that.
You highlight a good point, but that's typically not how companies would work because that way I'm blocking my supply of agents. It also brings in one more problem of predicting what kind of queries will come so that I hire which kind of agents, right? It is always better to have generic agents so that if any type of queries spikes up, people are all of them are aware of how to approach this. Also, typically in a setup, it's not like that the agents are aware of answers. They follow an incident tree. So also while they're talking to you, they will keep inputting things on their customer support portal to get to a final answer that they need to get to and give to a customer. So it's not like they are talking with their own knowledge in most cases. They are following a decision tree on their screens and then trying to give an answer basis that.
Okay, so in my previous question, you also talked about this, that as an PM, you can help out there. Okay, so you were talking about the same thing, like the decision tree they are seeing in front of them, we can make them better as an PM somehow.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, understood. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Devan.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah, Srishti, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Actually, first of all, I'm still not getting the KPI trees, wala, the matrix. Like, are we supposed to like see? Currently, the case is of Swiggy. Uske pehle, the case was like of a different company maybe. So, like, how are we supposed to maybe get to the actual matrix that are there? I mean, I'm not able to link the business outcome to the product outcome, and it's all chaotic right now in my mind when it comes to creating the KPI tree. How should I? Uh,
Okay. So first we should treat this as different problems, right? There is a problem of breaking down one metric into KPI trees, right? That is something that you should practice a lot more. We spoke about number of agents today. You should say today, go home and think about how would you estimate the number of the total watch time on Netflix, for example, right? Um, that you practice a lot more, it will become clearer on how to attempt these cases, show your answers to your peers around you, and who can help you guide, and that way you get better at it. So there's no replacement of practice. You'll have to practice, of course. Um, your first question was about um, um, how do you come to business outcomes to product outcomes, right? Always think about how to solve the problem or what is the real problem that you're solving. Okay, always ask why a problem is needed to be solved, right? Reducing customer support queries. Okay, why do we need to reduce customer support queries? Suddenly we'll have an answer. Okay, we need to reduce support cost, that's why we want to reduce support queries. Okay, now reducing support cost is a very clear thing. uh, you can go on to now break this down problem and go ahead to solve it. If there were more layers, you could ask more beyond it, right? So just to take an example, if someone asks me, I want to increase my entertainment watch time on Hotstar, I would ask them why. Why do you want to increase entertainment watch time on Hotstar? And then they would tell me, okay, people come and watch sports, but we don't have sports every time during the year, so they don't subscribe for the rest of the months. Hence, I want them to watch entertainment so that they keep subscribed for the rest of the year as well. Now it becomes clearer that I need to focus on people who are not watching entertainment content. How can I make them watch entertainment? So then the problem statement reframes to how can I hook users on watching entertainment? From the where that problem becomes is non-entertainment sports watchers. How do I convert them to entertainment watchers? And you see how the problem statement has completely reframed from where we started. So the key is to focus on why a problem needs to be solved and then reframing it basis when you have uncovered the real answer.
I get it now. I think I, because very first time when I actually tried it, so I was like कि यहाँ से revenue से I need to start, and maybe that's also now I can get it. Like I need to start getting the actual start point from where the KPI tree has to be. Then come to the conclusion. I get it.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Folks, I'll just take one more question. We are way over time. So there is sorry Samriddhi, there is someone who also pinged me a question on chat. I'll focus on their question quickly. And yeah, you mentioned that practice building product outcome KPI trees more and more. How can we validate that whether we are on the right track or identify the gaps in our approach? How did you assess your own work when you were practicing? So I fortunately had a peer set very close to me in college where they would read the answer and then make me do the case and then evaluate my answer real time. You can do that. You can find out questions on the internet where there is already an answer available and then attempt it without looking at an answer. There are a lot of them available on Exponent, product management exercises.com. I think Nextleap also has a AI generated portal that helps you evaluate your work. So do that. Will the slide deck be shared with us for your reference? 100%. The recording and the slide deck will be shared. Yes. Um, awesome. Yeah, Samriddhi, I think we can take one more question quickly. I'm gonna go ahead. This one is gonna be shorter. Okay. Looks like she already left. Okay, awesome. Thanks, folks.
Just a moment.
Yeah.
So, just following up, so we just compare the answers with the solutions which are there and with ours, and to understand that whether some gaps exist or not. Is that it?
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Thanks, folks. Thanks a lot. Hope this session was helpful. You learned something. Yeah,
Thank you.
we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.